Tess here from Tytoni Yoga. All right, so we're going to go over Adho Mukha Svanasana or downward dog pose, and we're also going to mention Catur Svanasana, which is dolphin pose, which can be a different variation that we can use if the downward dog pose isn't working for us, especially if we're having problems with our wrists. This pose is a great pose for strengthening the legs, the body, for stretching the legs, for strengthening the core. It sometimes is considered to be a calming, relaxing pose, but for a lot of people, it's not that. But it does depend on what you're doing. Maybe it is a nice pose to stop and pause for a bit, right? Especially when we're using it in things like um, the sun salutations, right? Where you're kind of stopping the movement for a moment there, breathing in and out. So this pose can be done on the floor, it can be done in a chair, it can be done against a wall. So there's lots of different variations that we can do this pose. So let's look at them now so you can kind of play around a bit and see what works for you. And maybe if you want to design your own ones, let me know. But let's get started. So if you like this video, I would love for you to join me over in my studio. There's a link below if you'd like to check it out. It's an online studio and there's loads of videos there and it's constantly growing. And I go through things like breath, I go through different yoga foundations, and you have loads of different videos, short videos, longer videos, and the whole idea is to focus on creating that connection between breath and movement and really creating your own home practice for you practice that suits the moment that you're living in at that time. So I'd love to see you over there. If you have any questions, either put in the comment box below or send me a message on Instagram or through my website, www.tytoniyoga.com. That's Tytoni yoga.com. And let's chat. Otherwise, just sign up for the studio and I'd love to see you there. And don't forget to like this video if you liked it. Hit subscribe to my channel and the little bell so that you can hear when new things get posted. Thanks, friend. Hey, all right, so I've got some blocks here. If you want to get some blocks, if you have some blocks, awesome. You can use them. If you don't, you can use pillars, you can use whatever, or you cannot use them at all. So I just want to show you a couple different options with the blocks, and I'll show you some with the chair as well. So, um, just set the blocks away from here. So we're just going to get into our downward dog pose. So I think the first important thing is to notice where your arms should go. So bring your arms to the side. Now I'm sitting in a kneeling position. You can be standing, you can be whatever. It's just see how your arms are. Okay, just let them lower down naturally. And then lift the elbows up, okay? So that, or lift the hands up from the elbow, so not the full arms, so that you're kind of creating a 90-degree angle here. Now see how those hands are coming out, okay? And without changing the position of those hands, push the arms forward. So you're pushing the hands forward, but you're not changing where those hands are. So more or less, that should be where your hands are on your mat for downward facing dog. They are not right under the shoulders necessarily. Okay, they are probably a little bit further out. So once again, just trying that. Bring your arms down and then lifting the hands up from the elbows and then pushing the hands out and see where they are. Okay, so more or less that will be probably the most comfortable position for your arms to be when you're in downward facing dog. So if we try this here, we're facing towards our mat, right? Arms come out, hands push out, hands come down onto the mat. So my hands are pretty much at the edge of my mat here. Now, obviously, your mat can be different size and you can feel differently, but just to give you sort of a reference of mine. And then we're going to tuck our toes under and we're going to lift our hips up and we're going to push ourselves back here a little bit. So I recommend that you keep your knees bent, especially if you're noticing that your spine is, if you're trying to straighten the legs out and your spine is rounding. We want a nice straight spine here. So we're gently pushing the heels towards the ground. We're lifting our sits bones up. And by bending our knees, actually, we're creating more strength in this pose. And it's not that we're not stretching the legs, because I still definitely feel a stretch, because I'm still actively pushing my heels down. And if you notice, my heels are not actually touching the ground. That's okay. They do not have to touch the ground. If you're not comfortable with this and you have like a wedge or something that you want to put under the heels, you can do that as well. All right, so that is downward dog in essence, but we can switch it up a bit. So if you want a little bit more space here, so watching once again where those arms come, bring some blocks down. And maybe you have like this, you're lifting them up, so they're flat on the ground. All right, so this just gives you a little bit more space here. If you want a little bit more space, maybe even practicing a little bit more balance, pressing hands and pushing your hips back, right, into downward dog. So let's also talk about Catur Svanasana or dolphin pose. So this is very similar to downward facing dog, and it's a really good pose to do if your wrists are not feeling great, and so you're putting more of the weight in your forearm instead of your hands, or anything is wrong with your hands, really, right? You're still activating in your hands, you're still working your hands, but it just doesn't have the same pressure on it. So if we come onto our forearms and we want our elbow to be under our shoulder more or less, but we can also open it up. So once again, bringing your hands kind of the same width that they would be for downward facing dog, tucking toes under and lifting hips up. Okay, so maybe straightening legs out here, maybe bending the knees a little bit more. You decide what feels good. So you're using a lot more of your upper body here to keep you up. You're really noticing it more in the shoulders. So if you have shoulder injury, maybe this is not the option for you, but just kind of play around with it and see. And we can also do this on blocks as well. So bring your arms on blocks, right, to lift you up a little bit more. So you're still using more of your forearms, you're still using more of your shoulders, but you're just giving yourself a little bit more space. So imagine this is your chair, right? You're going to walk your hands back, bum back, and holding on to the edge of the chair, right? We're coming more or less into the same position, downward dog. You can do this on a wall as well, right? So if you're just on the wall, pushing into the wall, this is downward facing dog against the wall, right? So especially if you're noticing that you are a little bit tender in the spine, or you're pregnant and you don't want to put your head down lower, or for any other reason that you don't want to put your head down towards the ground, you can use a wall as well. We can also do this just on our knees, right? We can kind of sit forward like this. So we're sitting our hips back, we're pushing forward, hands pushing against imaginary wall, right? This is a similar idea. You're not getting as much workout from the lower legs, but you're still getting that workout in the core. Okay, sitting in your chair, you can extend your legs out and push your body forward. If you can tell that this is downward facing dog in a chair. Okay, so there's lots of different ways that we can do this. You could even do this on the floor on your side, just getting into that position. So let's just play, right? Let's just try it. So you can come onto your side, bring your legs forward, heels flex, arms out. And you can even lift your legs here and lift your arms, right? The same sort of way. And then do it on the other side. So this can be a really good way to practice and to build strength, but also to keep the support And notice as well, because your back is on the ground, you can pay a little bit more attention to how maybe you're lifting in the chest, maybe you're rounding the spine, right? So there's lots and lots and lots of different ways that we can practice this. And it's all about kind of playing around and trying and see what works well for you, and see what feels good in that moment. Because maybe one day the normal downward facing dog feels awesome, but then the next day you're like, oh, that just feels a bit too much, or I don't know, I want to try something new. So maybe you try it against a wall, or you try it on a chair, or against a countertop. So you play, you try, and hopefully this was a good showing of how you can do it in different ways.